So my name is Pierre. I'm from a company called AIVA, and basically I'm a musician, engineer, and computer scientist in general. I come from a family of artists. So my father is a film and music producer. My mother's a singer. And I studied computer science at university, and I also did some film directing with my father. And so I got a passion for both music and films, and also for technology. And I thought, what would happen if I decided to join both of those passions. And the intersection is AIVA. So AIVA is an artificial intelligence that writes music for soundtracks of films, video games, TV shows, advertisements, and so forth. And basically, it's an AI system that has been trained over 30,000 scores of history's greatest composers, so the like of Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Wagner, Stravinsky, and so forth. And so let's have a look at what 30,000. Well, first of all, this is like one score in the representation that the AI sees. So if you consider a horizontal line, it would be the time of the music, and if you consider a vertical line, it would be the pitch of the music. So this is kind of like a MIDI representation. And this is what 30,000 score, I don't know if you see, but all those little white dots are actually scores of music that AIVA sees. So that's what 30,000 scores look like in a single picture. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because our system is based on deep learning, which is the same technology that powers self-driving cars. And this technology needs a lot of data in order to work. And so AIVA looks for patterns in those scores. It analyzes patterns in the... Oh, there's no animation there. Well, there's supposed to be an animation of like, where the patterns are in those notes. But basically, AIVA looks for patterns in the melody, in the rhythm, in the harmonies that are used in the structure of the piece, whether some parts of the piece is an introduction, a theme A, or like a bridge, and so forth. And then it tries to infer some rule of how music is supposed to sound like, a sort of definition of music. Just like as a composer, when you start to learn about music, and you sort of build your musical intuition, your musical style. So AIVA functions in a similar fashion. And then we actually expose AIVA to a bunch of different styles of music, and we tell it, for example, this is what Beethoven music sounds like, or this is what Mozart music sounds like, and then AIVA, based on our client's requirements, can generate music in very specific styles. So actually, one of our clients called NVIDIA commissioned us to write a piece of music that would be reminiscent of the soundtrack of a science fiction film. And so AIVA composed the music that was then performed by a 78-piece orchestra in Hollywood, in the famous Fox Studios, the Newman scoring stage. So we had 78 musicians performing the music composed by AI, and the piece is called Among the Stars, and I'd like to play like 30 seconds of the piece just for you to hear what it sounds like. Okay, so this is what some music composed by AI sounds like in the realm of orchestral music, and it's kind of interesting because you have technology writing music, but I think one thing that I'd like to talk about in this speech is not necessarily how technology can write music, but how this music can be used by humans to create beautiful art. And in this context, this was interesting because the music was composed by AI, but then it was performed by humans and it was brought to life by humans, 78 people actually. And I think that's the most beautiful part of this endeavor. And in the past, technology has repeatedly augmented human creativity. I mean, we've seen the advance of recording, for example. because back then, in the 19th century, live music was the only way to really consume music. You would go to the symphony. It would be quite an elite thing, like only the elites could go to the symphony, could afford that, and you would listen to live musicians performing, and then maybe you would own an instrument and you could perform this instrument at home, but usually this was reserved to a very small part of the population, a very small elite. But then recording came about, and people were able to enjoy music from the radio. So it opened up the audience of music to a much larger group of people. So now everybody was able to essentially consume music. But on top of that, you had content creators like film directors who were able to work with composers to have pre-recorded soundtracks specifically personalized and tailored to their film, to each and every frame of their film, and that was really an enhancer of creativity, because now we take for granted that a film is going to have a personalized soundtrack. So, like in this instance, like recording of music was an enhancer of creativity. And then, actually, a second innovation that's brought a lot of augmentation to creativity is the advent of synthesizers, just like you mentioned, and it's very important, I think, to look at those technological advancements and how they affected our creativity. So in the case of synthesizers, it essentially allowed us to create new genres of music, like electronic music, and it's really important to look at that, because then we can sort of infer how AI can not replace us as musicians, but actually augment our own creative abilities. And one thing that I think AI will be very good at is creating personalized music. So by personalized music, I mean, imagine you have a video game that has hundreds of hours of stories, which becomes increasingly common. But right now, this video game has only 2 hours of music. So it means the same music loops 50 times over, which is really just maddening if you're listening to the same track 50 times over. What you could have in the future is a composer writes 2 hours of music, but then have an AI, an AI assistant built in the video game, like extend that soundtrack that was created by a human to hundreds of hours. And here, this is really a type of use case where human creativity alone cannot scale. Like, there's no way in the world a human composer can create hundreds of hours of music. That's just not feasible. But with technology, we may be able to do that, and we may be able to push the creative endeavor of what a composer can do, and for what kind of medium they can score for. So this is like one type of use case that I'm personally excited about. On top of just being able to solve more basic problems that composers are facing today, like writer's block, which is also mentioned. And I think that technology can definitely help in that regard. Like, if you're sitting in your studio, you have no idea what to write next because you're just having a bad day, you just have an AI that can help inspire you into creating something. And you don't have to do exactly what the AI tells you. You can just draw inspiration from it and just explore new styles of music that maybe you're not comfortable with. And I think that's the real value of AI generating music. Thank you very much.